isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I can see all of us are now here. Paul just joined us also. So yeah, welcome everyone. It's been a crazy day, but I'm so excited that all of you are here. I shared with you the final slide. Harriet, I hope I put the correct one this time around.
Not terrible, but it's fine.
I am so thrilled to be here this afternoon to share with you this wonderful, wonderful resource that we have developed with Harriet and other colleagues' help, and to hear the stories of how other people have worked in the media advocacy space. So a hearty welcome from the MenCare Global campaign, from Sonke Gender Justice, and I really look forward to spending the next hour or so with you to hear more. Let me pass over to Hassan.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone who is on the call. My name is Hassan. I'm the person from MenEngage Africa. And all of you to have registered for the launch of the media toolkit. First and foremost, I'd like to express gratitude to our partners. We receive funding from CEDA headquarters to be able to do work in the equality in Africa. MenEngage Africa is composed of 22 African countries, and in each of those 22 countries, we have country networks that have civil society organizations as members. Principally, as a network, we are a capacity building and advocacy organization working to transform men and masculinities on the African continent. Around MenCare, the work around the fatherhood campaign is so important for us as MenEngage Africa, because that's one of the ways where we can transform masculinities. That is one of the ways where we can make a contribution to men engaging in violence prevention and prevention of gender-based violence and domestic violence and many other forms of violence. So the launch of the media toolkit will see us go a long way in strengthening the work that we do around transforming masculinities, around shifting gender norms, and we strengthen our partnership with the media, because we know the media is a key ally, especially on the African continent, where radio media to have a huge penetration, now it's source of information for African people. So we want to see that we harness the potential of the media to really send out the messages of preaching for equality, preaching shifting gender norms, and changing masculinities. So this is an important moment for us, and I am happy for our Secretary Sonke Gender Justice for the work that you have done on the media toolkit, but also the African countries that made a contribution to this media toolkit. So moving on, we are going to see much bigger visibility for our work in the fatherhood campaign. Thank you very much, and welcome to the meeting.
Thank you so much, Hassan. Your audio was not so good. There were some suggestions that maybe you switch off your video so that we can hear you much better. And can I ask that you just briefly try and repeat what you were saying?
Oh, so I have more time. Okay, I was just saying that story about the network problems. The work of launching a media.
Sorry, Hassan, I'm sorry, your audio is still not so okay. Perhaps we will see later on whether you can welcome us properly. So Hassan is the MenEngage Africa chairperson, and welcoming us all to the webinar and toolkit launch. Discussion was that we are so excited that the toolkit is going to be shared today, and we're hoping that it's going to benefit all the participants who are here as well as our communities. So without wasting much time, Sonke Gender Justice, MenEngage Africa, and MenCare Global are delighted to be hosting this webinar, where we'll be launching the media kit towards the end of this webinar. So please do join us until the end of this webinar, as we'll also be sharing with you the link where you can access the media kit. A special thank you to everyone who worked on this project. Your continuous and valuable partnership is greatly appreciated. We will be sharing with you later on about the journey that led us to where we are today. We would also like to appreciate CEDA Global and Oak Foundation for the generous funding for this work. This webinar has drawn 6 experts and thought leaders from the NGO sector and the media, who are going to take us through themes that are contained in the media kit. So before I introduce you to our panelists for today's webinar, I just want to share some housekeeping rules. Number 1, each panelist is going to present for 5 minutes. So we're going to allow all the panelists to go through their presentations. So when the last panelist has spoken, we will then have ongoing question and answers from you if ever you need any clarities. You can use the question and answer tab that is found just on the screen, so that if ever you have any questions, you can always type them, and we'll get a chance after the presentations to read them out and ask the panelists to respond to them. The session will be recorded. The link together with the presentations will be emailed to you after the webinar ends. We would also like to encourage our social media engagement. We are using the hashtag MenCareMedia. The other hashtag is Men as Caregivers on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also tag us at Sonke Together, at MenCare SA, at MenEngage Africa, as well as at MenCare Global. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Harriet Perlman. So Harriet has worked in the field of education and entertainment in film, television, and publishing for more than 30 years. Harriet has spearheaded numerous entertainment and education projects and initiatives that combine the two. Harriet has experience as a writer, book editor, film producer, publisher, educational trainer, story editor, and researcher. They've worked in different formats, including television, television drama, feature films, social campaigns, animation, print, and documentaries. Harriet is currently freelancing and working on a campaign for the South African Council of Churches and Headlines using digital formats to develop and distribute information on the coronavirus, including audio-visual resources. Harriet is also the creative producer for Headlines on a series of 6 anthology films called Fathers Matter. Harriet has over the years worked with a number of organizations, including Soul City Institute for Health and Development Communication, Corruption Watch, Headlines, Bomb Productions, Rififi Films, Quizzical Pictures, Vets Reproductive Health Unit, and the Wraith Foundation. I'm also excited to be introducing you to Harriet because she's the one who helped us develop this toolkit. She is the history behind this toolkit. So I'm so excited that she was able to be one of our speakers, and I'd like to hand over to you, Harriet.
Hi, Mpho. Thanks so much for that introduction, which makes me feel very old. And welcome to everybody else. It's really nice to be here. And it was just great fun and fabulous to work with Mpho and Wessels and the other people at Sonke Gender Justice on this. So I know I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to set my little clock and try and go as quickly as I can. Suleiman, are you going to share that slide? Great. So I'm just going to talk briefly about communication for change. And as you know, if we want to put out communication, we always have a goal. We want to change something. But as I'll say when I get to the end, we also want to make sure that we produce the kind of media that draws people in, that makes them interested, that makes them excited. But when we're thinking about the kind of advocacy campaign that we want to do, then numerous theories and debates about what triggers change. And it's very important that in fact you take cognizance of those things so that you can design the kind of campaign that in fact will leverage that change. So in the toolkit, we talk a little bit about different theories, but just let me mention one, which is the socio-ecological model, which acknowledges that there are many influences to changing. Those are individual influences. We are influenced by our community. We are influenced by our environment, and we're influenced by the broader political environment. So those are the many things that you want to think about when you are designing a campaign. But when we think of a campaign, we also want to think about, well, what are the tipping points? If you want to change behavior, what is it that you want to change? And I'll just think of giving up smoking, for example. You may be aware that smoking is bad for you, but actually the environment in which you are doesn't facilitate or support that change. And so you want to think about what are the things that are important, creating awareness, dialogue and debate. Often, in fact, when we, I'd be happy for Osayanda to go straight away. You could go back to the slide. Is my slide still up? Okay, no worry, I'll just talk to it. So there are different tipping points, and it's important to think about which of those are most likely to leverage the change that you want. So we know, for example, that dialogue and debate is very important. When you talk about it, when you engage, when you have conversations, it very often leads to change. So the next thing that I think is important is in thinking about who and what do you want to change at an individual level, at a community level, and at a broader political level. And based on that, you design messages. You design the messages that, in fact, are most important for the kinds of work that your organization is doing. And what is important about messages is that they're based on research, that you don't just suck them out of your thumb. So, for example, I remember working on a campaign with Soul City around HIV and condom use, and everyone was saying, all we've got to do is create awareness, just create awareness that condoms protect you from HIV. But in fact, our research showed us that that wasn't the issue at all. What was the issue was that clinics were barriers for people to get condoms. In fact, the nurses very often were not allowing young girls and judging them, and so that's why they didn't. So we had to engage a little bit differently. Once you've designed your messages, you want to also then decide who's your audience. And that may seem obvious to you, but actually they're often primary audiences and secondary audiences. You may want to reach young fathers, but actually you also want to talk to grandmothers and mothers as well. And sometimes your secondary audience can be barriers, but they certainly influences always on, in fact, the messages that you want to create. So who's your audience is really important. Then you want to choose your media formats. And the media formats, there are multiple media formats. And often that is budget constrained, but different platforms do different things better. Television and story is not great for, in fact, giving detailed information that you need. It's good to inspire and create interest. Radio, puppet shows, community, print. You have a range of tools at your disposal. You want to think about that. And I'm going to sum up. At the beginning, I said, when you're doing communication for change, you want to think about the change. You're not just entertaining, but actually you want to do both. Because we may care about what we are doing very passionately, but does anybody else? And very often they don't. And using story, you want to in fact hook them and you want to engage people emotionally. And so that's a very important part of thinking about your campaign. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Harriet, for that insight. I know we have so much to discuss, and especially since you were behind the brains of working on this project. But we will get some more time later today for you to share with us more insights. So our second panelist is Paul. Paul is the first of 8 children and a father of 3, Miracle, Michael, and Moses, and married to Mercy. He is a graduate of theater arts from the University of Benin, Nigeria, where he majored in acting and directing. He is a writer and a song composer and producer, specifically reggae music. He has over 20 years experience practicing advertising as a copywriter and graphic designer. He is a pastor and a marriage counselor and has been advocating for gender equality and end to FGM since 2010. He is a public speaker and the executive director of Mercy and Peace Creation, a non-governmental organization partnering with MenEngage Nigeria. With Paul, he has a case study that is also featured in the media kit. So Paul, I'd like to hand over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Mfo, for that introduction. If you have my slide, and thank you to Suleiman, if you have my slide, you can please put it up. Okay, great. If you took a closer look at the pictures I have on my slide, you will find 2 pictures side by side. So maybe you can zoom in, but it's okay. You can see it. The question will be for me, what will make one picture okay and the other picture awkward? The possibility of that will be because the way we define life socially has been implanted over a long period of time. And so for me to get this man in my picture to do what this woman is doing, I will need to talk to the man. I can't talk around the man. I can't talk over the man. And most certainly, I can't talk behind the man. So I need to talk to the man. And this will bring to on board the second point on my slide. The issue of strategy when it comes to media is also as important as all the effort we put together in our advocacy initiative. What you find here in Nigeria is that we have very fantastic message strategy, and we have beautiful effort that we knit together for a great advocacy campaign, but we often ignore the need for complementary media strategy. Now, the example, the case study we have that is published in the toolkit is the case where we talked about end to FGM, and we went to a radio station called City FM 105.1. Why did we go to City FM 105.1? Well, data, broadcast data here in Nigeria showed that the people who are more over 70% of the audience on that station are people who are now today's parents. The reason is because City FM plays a kind of music that that reminds these parents of the music they used to listen to when they were boys and girls, when they used to go to the clubhouse. Now they are parents, so they love to listen to those music again, and it just brings sweet memories. So you find a lot of today's parents on that platform. Plus, City FM is good when it comes to information and education. And today's parents want information that we connect them to opportunities. So data just showed to us that you find people of this age group listening to this particular radio station. So we went to City FM because we needed to talk to parents to defend their daughters against the practice of female genital mutilation. What we find is that in the communities where it is mostly practiced, it is the women who actually carry out the act of FGM. But the laws and the unwritten constitution, traditional constitution, guiding the act are in the custody of the men. So it is like the men using the hand of the women to commit the act. So we needed to talk to the fathers to defend their daughters against FGM. And we find a number of them listening to a particular session where we can talk directly to them to do what we want them to do or adopt a positive behavioral pattern. So the question, where can I find my target, is as important as developing a fantastic message strategy and all the other advocacy efforts that we put together. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Merci très bien. Thank you so much, Paul, for your presentation. We really enjoyed working with the various MenEngage Africa partners when we were collecting data.
More still needs to be done, but we have seen several very positive effects of these policies. Present engaged fathers have a strong impact as positive role models for their children. And also men who are involved in meaningful ways with their children report that this relationship is one of their most important sources of well-being and happiness. For women, it has also meant economic empowerment. And men's greater involvement in care work also brings economic benefits to both families and the country as a whole. When women participate in the labor market to the same extent as men, it has a clear positive impact on the country's economy and in fact raises the GDP. Perhaps the most important conclusion from these reforms are that gender equality serves both genders well. The MenCare Media Kit, I think, highlights in an excellent way how progress can be achieved. In particular, I found the socio-ecological model to be very clear about how behavioral change is influenced by your environment. In our case, the political influence in the form of legislation provided the basis for change. Although you might say that it wasn't necessarily the starting point, but of course there was a sort of a movement before that. But this is really a key tipping point, if you like. When then some high-level people, executives, politicians, journalists, they became trailblazers when they were among the first to take parental leave in the 70s. And with time, children grew up and became parents themselves and could follow in their father's footsteps and take on an equal responsibility for childcare and housework. And suddenly you reach another tipping point where fathers are simply expected and are themselves expecting to take time off to care for their children. Norms have shifted and real change has taken place. So now to the how. How does the embassy work with these themes to share Swedish experiences? Well, an important starting point is, of course, building partnerships with local actors with a similar agenda. We have partnered, for example, with MenCare, Sonke Gender Justice, Save the Children, UNICEF, the Children's Rights Commissioner, to name but a few. And I'll give you two examples of activities that we have done to promote our view of gender equality and positive parenting. So one example is a project called Swedish Dads Photo Exhibition, which featured photos by a Swedish photographer who took pictures of fathers on parental leave, and which we then, together with Sonke Gender Justice, matched up with a photo competition for South African, Namibian, and Botswanan dads. We received some really lovely photos that were exhibited in Pretoria, Joburg, Windhoek, and Gaborone. The photos were then used as a basis for roundtable conversations on fathers' roles and the benefits of having both parents play an equal role in their children's lives and what is needed to change norms. During lockdown in South Africa, we launched a follow-up of sorts with an online photo and video competition called Quarantine Dads, where South African dads contributed with photos and videos of how they spend meaningful and plentiful time with their children during lockdown. The winners were announced at a webinar held this week, and you can watch a recording of the conversation on our Facebook page along with beautiful videos and photos. And you will find us on Sweden in SA is our handle. And on the photo on the slide, you can see one of the winners of the competition, a father who wants to change the way certain tasks in the home is viewed by others, and doing it in this way. So I think, Rosa, is there anything that you would like to add at this stage, or shall we take that to Q&A? Up to you.
Thanks, Amir. Yes, let's wait for Q&A, and yeah, we can take it from there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing your presentation. I always admire the photo exhibitions. I remember when we were in Morocco last year for the MenCare Global meeting, we did get a chance to also go view some photo exhibitions that the Swedish Embassy had presented. So thank you so much for sharing that experience. So our fourth panelist is Mariam. Mariam holds an LLM degree in International Legal Studies from Georgetown University, Washington, D.C., and PhD degree in Education Management from International Black Sea University, Georgia. She has been working on the progressively increasing managerial positions in the private sector and the development field for more than 50 portfolio in UNFPA, Georgia, since 2012, and is currently spearheading wide range of directions crucial for attaining substantial GE. Her portfolio includes, but is not limited to, leading policy advocacy, generating knowledge resources, working on the healthcare response to GBV, enhancing general education system through integrating the GE and SRH, working with the NHRIs, leading awareness-raising campaigns on male involvement and harmful practices, and so on. Mariam is a proud mother of a 10-year-old son. Mariam, over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity of speaking with you here. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about one of the initiatives that UNFPA Georgia has conducted within the MenCare Georgia campaign. I don't know how much you know about my country, but it is quite a conservative country, where, as usual, likewise in many other countries, men are the decision makers and women are more caretakers. So this was the context, at least like 5 years ago, when we started working on a MenCare Georgia campaign. So the activity, one of the activities that has been done within the campaign was called Prime Time Dads. So the idea of this was that it was kind of a reality show when a father was left alone to care for his 2 or even more children and to deal with certain household chores that is very usual for women and typical for their day. However, the caveat here was that father had no support whatsoever, and we also tried to create some kind of artificial barriers for the fathers. Like, for example, they ran out of the diapers all of a sudden, or found out that there was no baby food at home, so they had to deal with spontaneous issues around the babies. So we had these episodes where we saw fathers struggling with this experience of mothers. And then afterwards, we had them to sit in the studio and reflect on their experience, on what they have learned, what they have observed. And the discussion that they had afterwards was astonishing. I mean, we saw people changing, I mean, during the 15 minutes, as they reflected on their experiences. Those who were thinking that women were not doing much work at home, they were just sitting at home, realized how much burden it is for a woman to take care of the families, to care about them, to take care of their kids. And then we had kind of evaluated the program and deduced certain results based on this program that I would like to share with you at this point. First of all, why the program and why this initiative particularly proved to be very successful. Because we concentrated on a positive messaging. Now, if we had picked up any other issue, like for example, violence or any other thing, or women's empowerment, or women's economic support, or that kind of issue, it might not have worked as well as this particular example. because we took the positive messaging that resonated very well with people, that rang a bell in the minds of the people. The second lesson that we learned basically out of the program was that exactly evidence was crucial for formulating the program and each of the activity within the program. For example, this particular activity was based on the findings that less than 5% of fathers communicate with their kids, and this percentage decreases with the increase of the age of a kid. So when they reach age 18, for example, lesser fathers communicate with their kids about everyday problems, or just talk with them, or read to them, or do stuff with their kids. So one thing is that I speak with my audience, but another thing is that we speak based on evidence, giving the hard evidence that is irrefutable for that. The third thing that I would like to mention here is that the television proved to be a very good pathway for delivering the messages. It helped us to reach wider spectrum of the society, and the figures that we then analyzed, how many people watched the program, was really quite amazing. And we saw that this form was really very good and crucial for reaching out the people. And finally, and which is one of the best things that probably that this particular initiative gave us, was that what was the aim of this whole initiative, right? We do not have the ambition that this activity or the whole MenCare campaign will change things overnight or even over years. It will require like 3, 4, 5 years, or even a generation, right? But what we could manage, and what we have done, is that we have increased the number of people supporting the idea that we push forward. So we have the allies of gender equality. We have more men accepting this involved fatherhood and responsible parenting as a new norm, which is not against the traditions. It's not against their Georgian traditions or their beliefs of being men, but rather than that, it benefits them, it benefits their families, and it also benefits the society at large. So as I said at the beginning, we saw during the program how men transformed. And we had athletes, writers, policymakers involved in this program, so that each of them could help us later on in different fields for spreading out the word about the MenCare campaign and about the values that the MenCare campaign shares. So this is probably very briefly, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that might arise. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us the Georgia experience. Some of us have not been there, but we hope one day we will definitely visit and see the lovely work that you are doing. It's very impressive. And I saw some comments liking the name Primetime Dads. So thank you for sharing. Just to remind everyone that you can still use the question and answer function if you have any questions. We are noting the questions that have come through, and we hope we'll have a bit of engagement after the speakers speak. And also not to forget to use our hashtag on our social media platforms. Our fifth panelist is Lloyd. Lloyd works under SAF-AIDS in Zimbabwe as the country focal point for Pitch, a global advocacy project for AGYW, LGBTI, sex workers, and PWUD. He also leads rights action and accountability, community mobilization, and state accountability for gender justice in Africa, a program that seeks to contribute to the realization of human rights and gender equality by building active and empowered local communities that hold governments accountable for gender justice. He is passionate about advocacy for social justice and community participation. He served in various advocacy coordination roles, working with young people, women, people living with HIV, and key population groups. He is a holder of a Master of Science degree in Media and Social Society Studies. So Lloyd, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mpho. I'm glad to be part of the panelists. So I'm going to speak about our work with the media in Zimbabwe. So our work in Zimbabwe, we started in 2018, where we created a movement of journalists to advance issues of gender equality in Zimbabwe. So what we did was to do a capacity building training with a number of community-based journalists and also from the mainstream journalism. So our aim was also to have that collective voice from the journalists because we know the influence that the media carry in our society. So we have about 15 journalists that we trained, and these have went on to form a movement which they named Media for Gender Justice. And from there, they went on to launch their blog, Gender Justice, where they also post articles related to issues of GBV. And they also, at instances, also hold our government to account, like also they take responsible ministers, like the Minister for Social Welfare, the Minister for Women Affairs, so that in other instances, the minister will then also be able to respond to some of those concerns. So we also supported issue of media case monitoring. What we have noted is that issues of GBV for the media are there for business, and what we have noted is that issues of GBV usually they are sidelined within the media space. So we also came up with some initiative where we supported investigative journalism, where journalists will go in the community and also track GBV cases within the communities. And with that, we launched through the hashtag Stop GBV, report GBV cases. Because from what we have noted issues of low reporting of GBV cases as a major concern within the communities. So what we intended to do was also to raise the consciousness of the community to also be able to raise GBV issues within their communities. So with the journalists that we trained from the community level, they have been able to track interesting cases of GBV. One case is around where 7 out of 10 Form 4 girls who were about to write their exams were all got pregnant. So this case was flagged up by the journalists that we trained, and following that coverage in the mainstream newspaper, the government has to take action to visit the community and also to do a report, which also helped to plan further on how to engage with the communities. So this is a part of the effort that we are doing at a community level. And also we have also supported, like during this era of COVID-19, we have noted that there have been increased cases of GBV. Like recent reports have seen that about 10,000 cases of GBV were reported in Zimbabwe from March. So what we have done with working with the media is also to do campaigns aimed at preventing issues of GBV within the communities. So we made posters in local language that were disseminated through social media and also various platforms. And we also did some masks with the message, Stop GBV, Prevent COVID-19, which also have been helpful in disseminating the message. And on that, we also shared hotline numbers where survivors of GBV will then also call in for advice. This has been the work that we are doing with the media, and also issues of referral. We have also publicized referral centers within the communities during this COVID-19, as also to link up the community with points of service for them to be able to access the relevant services. So this is what we are doing with the media in Zimbabwe. So in short, this is what I will share with you for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lloyd, for sharing the experience. And the great work that has emerged out of a grouping of journalists, just to show how much journalists can also be activists in this quest to achieve great communities or safe communities. So last but definitely not least, in my culture, they say if you present last, it means you are the king or the queen. So I'm going to present to you Juliet. Juliet is the current ED of Zambia National Women's Lobby. She holds a Master of Science degree in Project Management from the University of Bolton in the UK, a degree in Development Studies from the University of Zambia, a postgraduate diploma in Journalism and Democracy from Kalmar University in Sweden, and a diploma in journalism from Evelyn Horn College in Zambia. She started working for ZNWL as ED in July 2012. Before that, she worked for Diakonia Sweden in 2011 to 2012, which is a donor organization, as a program officer managing the European Union funds. Ms. Chibuta also worked for Southern Africa Legal Assistance Network from 2005 to 2011 as a regional coordinator, a human rights organization that implemented human rights projects in 11 SADC countries. She has also worked for media organizations that include Zambia Daily Mail and National Mirror, where she held various positions up to the level of editor. She also ran a gender column in the newspaper, highlighting various issues affecting women. Ms. Chibuta has also sat on various boards in Zambia that include NGOCC, Young Women in Action, and Legal Resources Foundation. Over to you, Juliet.
Thank you very much, Mpo, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon to speak at this exciting launch. So I'll begin by introducing the Zambia National Women's Lobby. To MenEngage, we are not strange because we are the secretariat of MenEngage Zambia. And also as an organization, we promote women's participation in decision making, and we also work with men. We have a huge following of the men's network in Zambia. So I'll begin my presentation. I was asked to speak on my experiences as a journalist, working with journalists and also working as an NGO person, on how the media has assisted us as an institution and also even as an individual in making our work easier. So in terms of the importance of NGOs working with the media, what we have discovered over the years is that the media helps us to create public trust in our work. People have been hearing about what we are doing through the media, and when they know and listen about you, they already know what you are doing. The media has assisted us in spreading our message, and for a long time, our organization is associated to promoting women's participation in leadership. And also, most of our partners that we have as an institution reach us through media, various forms of the media, and they will be telling us on how they found us, maybe on the website or they read about us and so on. And I can say that the media has also assisted us in achieving our goals, because where we do our work and where we are unable to reach, the media is able to reach for us, and also creating awareness on our work and helping us in influencing public opinion and assisting us in encouraging civic education. But how best can an NGO build relations with the media? So for me, I always have a passion for the media, because at the same time, I'm a media person and I'm also an NGO person. So it's important to begin with to build allies with the media, both reporters and editors. I know that most NGOs will talk about relating to the reporters and they leave up the editors, but editors are important because they decide the news content. And then it's also important to go beyond the sending out of press releases and holding press conferences. Sometimes take a walk to the newsrooms. I know that people who are not relating with the journalists usually have a fear with journalists, but take a walk Go to media institutions, introduce yourself, talk to them. And then also the other thing is that you need to utilize all types of media for the messages to reach out all your audiences. Harriet at the beginning talked about the audiences and how you can reach them. To tell you the truth, different audiences have got different media. So like, for example, for Zambia, we are about to start our electoral process. You will find that if you're doing voter education, if you want to reach the young women and the young men, you have to use social media. But if you want to reach our grandmothers and maybe people of middle age, you have to use the conventional electronic print media where they will sit down and watch the news. And also it's important to allow the media to join your field trips. I know that some NGOs find it difficult to work with the media, but if you take them on your field trips, they'll be able to meet your beneficiaries and they'll bring out the voices from the ground. Then also maintain consistency and have a clear message in all your campaigns and the advocacy that you are doing. If you maintain consistency, you find that it will be easier for any comment that the media wants, they will rush to you because they will know that that is what you are good at. And then also it's important to provide the media with training. Sometimes we may feel that the media are not covering us, they are not understanding what we are doing. It's because they don't know what you're doing. So like, for example, as an organization, we have developed a media toolkit for the media on how they can best cover the women leaders. And we have also provided a toolkit for the women leaders on how they can utilize the media. So it's the other way around. You'll find that gender issues will not allow women to quickly interact with the media, but the media also need to understand that interviewing a man or interviewing a woman is something that is different. And also the other thing is that as an institution, as an NGO, you need to package your news in such a way that it's a newsroom user friendly and it will bring out the human impact in whatever you are doing. And how can you maximize the use of internet and technology? We are living in a technology world, so we cannot keep away from internet and technology. Every time when I see a newspaper on my desk, these days I don't even read them. I read them towards the end of the day because I know that whatever is in the newspapers, we would have already seen them on social media. So social media and internet will help you reach the vast audience within a very short period of time. Like right now, as we are speaking, we are able to communicate with across the globe. And so as a result, this will mean that many people are seeing what we are doing. So some of the social media platforms that you can use quickly, websites, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Google+, and all those that are available that I have not mentioned. I think I'll end here and I'll take any questions when the question and answer session begins. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Juliet. I've seen some people commenting saying great advice that you're giving. I think one of the aims of this toolkit is also to help us as NGO practitioners to have good relationships with the media. Like what you were saying, that at times, you know, when we see a journalist, we usually fear and think that they're after the bad news. But just to create those relations, it's really, really great. And it's also some of the tips and guiding tools that we have in the media kit that we'll be launching shortly. So thank you so much, Juliet, for that valued information. We are really, really grateful for that. So thank you for staying with us up until now. We hope you enjoyed the presentations. We'll shortly be responding to the question and answers that you have been posting on the chat, and our panelists will be responding to these. We tried our best to group them, and I will now fill the questions to our panel to answer. In fact, Vessel will fill the questions so that the panelists can answer. We've also set aside some time for this session where you'll be able to engage and seek more clarity on the presentations that were made. And please do remember to keep the conversations going on our social media using the hashtags MenCare Media and Men as Caregivers. So Vessel, I'm handing over to you to engage with the panelists.
Thank you so much, Mpho, and thank you to all the panelists for the presentation. We've shared the questions in the chat box for the panelists, so you've had hopefully a few minutes to prepare, but I will just read the questions out and go down the list and give each panelist about a minute or two to respond to the question. The questions came through the chat box and through the Q&A, and let me start with the first one to Harriet, which is that, Harriet, you mentioned that we ought to lead with research in terms of our media advocacy. And the question from the participants is, how does a small organization without a research department or a dedicated research manager go about potential research to inform media advocacy?
So thanks for that question. And I think for many NGOs, it's a very real concern. It's very often a very small team who's trying to multitask and do absolutely everything. I guess the very short answer to that is subcontract. And the longer version that I do deal with in the media kit is it's very important to find partners when one's doing a campaign. Different partners, either who are also working in the same field as you, or partners who bring skills like research or television production, to support the kinds of things you need to do. So that would be what I would suggest, is find partnerships and subcontract. The other thing is just to say there's different kinds of research. There's in-depth and longitudinal studies and things that take a very long time. Qualitative research can be very time consuming. But one can do the minimum, and that is also often okay. There's a literature review, you can see what else exists and tap into that. You can find a very small cohort of people to just sit and ask questions and talk to them about how they feel, even interviews with individuals. So it's a kind of cut and paste. You do what you can, as best you can.
Thank you so much, Harriet. The next question is to Juliet, and the question is, do you think when talking to men and trying to change men's behavior, it needs to be a man who's talking to the men, or can a woman, for example, lead a workshop for men as well, from your experience in Zambia?
Yeah. From my experience in Zambia, I think this is it's an interesting question, because it also helps me reflect on how we came up with a men's network group within our organization. So to begin with, in the 1990s, when the women's movement was being formed, we only had women championing issues of gender equality, gender discrimination. But over the years, we realized that it was difficult to penetrate certain areas. Like, for example, Zambia is quite a patriarchal country and very cultural, where in other areas, women are free to do many things. In Zambia, you cannot sometimes put across your message if, as a woman, you want to speak to a group of men. So that's how come many organizations in Zambia, women's movement organizations, they have a network of men. So, for example, our organization, it was just for women. Then the membership opened up for men, and many other organizations. That's how come now we even have a stronger MenEngage team of men supporting men. But these are gender-sensitive men who can be able to reach out to their fellow men on issues of gender-based violence, on issues of discrimination, on the various campaigns that we're doing, even just a campaign of promoting women's participation in leadership. As we are preparing for the elections in 2021, we have a group of men who are already speaking within the political parties to ensure that men, the political leaders also look at adopting the men. So the situation may be different from country to country, and I'm speaking from the experience of my country. I know that it's a heated debate within the SADC region, because in certain countries, the women's movement actually is saying that what are men doing in our work? Why are they involved in whatever we are doing? But I think that in Zambia, our situation is different. Right now, we need the men to break into certain religious barriers, traditional barriers, cultural barriers, and we have a very strong movement of the men who are working with us to champion gender equality.
Thank you. So the next question is to Paul Asayande. I hope you're still with us. There we go. And Paul, the question is, I guess it's about the prevalence of FGM. So with various campaigns by human rights activists against FGM and even virginity testing, do we still have communities doing these cultural practices? Also maybe a comment on the use of the word cultural practice there. So maybe just a reflection from you on the prevalence and you know, how present is it in communities and how does it manifest?
Okay, thank you. To answer that, I will say yes, it still exists. What we are beginning to dig into here is that it is possible we are talking about the issues. We are not talking to the people who are responsible for the sustenance of some of these harmful practices. So that is where, again, research comes handy. Yes, I identify very strongly with our participants who wants us to consider cost implication for research. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we really cannot divorce research from advocacy. We will need to know, for instance, in the case of FGM, the people behind the sustenance, and then we can talk to them. These key influencers, you need to know them, and you need to know where to find them. You don't use available media. You use the media that can take you to your target. So all of these are research-based. And again, it is possible that through relationship, perhaps because I've spent some time in the advertising world, I have some link here and there with media guys, but relationship can do so much where money is not readily available. So we can take research out. And yes, the practice is still on, sadly.
Okay. Thank you so much, Paul. The next question is to Mariam, and the participant was really happy to hear about the Primetime Dads project that you mentioned, and just asking if there's any evaluation document that was done for it. We would love to read up on it, and maybe if there is an evaluation of some kind, maybe just mention one or two of the findings.
Right, basically, yes, first of all, there is an evaluation report available, and I'll be more than happy to share that with you and with the participants. Moreover, I think one of the participants also asked if one of the episodes could be shared to watch, and I think I can locate that as well, and I can share you the link with you so that you can watch how this all was organized. The findings, as I said, was about the evidence-based approach and using the evidence as the stepping stone for kind of elaborating and designing certain activities within the campaign, first of all, and positive messaging, because that really works. I mean, being in a country where there's a lot of social and economical problems around the people, and sometimes the argument that you hear is that there is no time for equality, gender equality talk when we have so many problems around us. But if you tailor this around the positive messaging, they will then understand that this is really indeed linked to the social economic well-being as well, and it's not just the gender equality agenda in its regards. And Vessel, if I may, I also wanted to reflect on one of the questions that the participants asked about whether men should talk with men only.
Yes, exactly.
We have I mean, it depends on a situation and a country, as Juliet said, but we have an activity which is called Men Talking to Men. And this is the activity where only men are admitted at the training sessions. And why is that? Because there are some issues that once there is a woman, they do not speak up. They do not open up and discuss the issues freely and openly. So they need to have a safe environment at the same time. They will not speak, at least this is the case in Georgia, they will not speak about reproductive rights or ability to share the household chores because they want to look and sound masculine and muscular, and that's against somehow the traditions of the country. So they need to have a safe environment. In this case, it really does work for men to talk with men only to facilitate a safe environment and help them to open up and absorb these messages. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariam. Let me pass the next question to Lloyd, which was about I guess the incidence or the prevalence of gender-based violence in Zimbabwe. And the participant mentioned a number of 10,000 gender-based violence cases reported in Zimbabwe since March. And just a question on how the situation is right now, if there's any updates on how it's going in terms of gender-based violence reporting or awareness at the current moment. So Lloyd, I hope that's a question that you'd be able to assist us with.
Okay, thank you very much. These are the 10,000. This is the latest report that we got, but I'm sure because the environment is more restrictive, and after March, when the government is imposed lockdown, we have seen more shrinking space for civil society and also even movement of people from one point to another. So this is also a major limitation in terms of reporting of cases. So the 10,000 might be lower than the actual cases of GBV which are happening in the communities. Because for one to be able to report cases, they need also to pass through police roadblock where they need also to produce a letter of employment. So which is also a challenge for those who are unemployed for them to get a letter to access services like GBV, counseling, and also access to justice. So the 10,000 might be lower than actually what is happening in the communities. Like also we have also challenges with the communities where there are no safe houses. So we might also see also victims or survivors also negotiating on their own at community level without reporting most of the cases. And we have also some recent cases of female politicians who reported that they have been abducted and raped, but we have seen also the state arresting them to say, you are lying, so we are charging you for claiming falsehood. So this is also a challenge where the government currently, there is a lot of silencing critics. And we have seen also the church, which also come in on board, trying also to challenge the government to accept what is happening and also address issues of men rights violation in country. So this is the challenge that we are at the current stage, and with the economy not doing well, we have also noted some cases coming from motivated by the economic situation where couples fight over money, and we have seen the inflation is going up, things are not okay, and we are worried that this situation is not really good and conducive for, especially when we are addressing issues of GBV in country.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lloyd. Before I pass back to Mpho, I've got one last question, and this is for you, Ami, from the Swedish Embassy's perspective, and I think you can pass to Rosa if Rosa is also going to add. The question is, how can we learn from the Swedish experience to match social norms with policy now that we have paternity leave in South Africa?
Well, thank you. That's a very good question. I think perhaps first it's important to realize that norms and policies are quite closely linked, and sometimes the norms will start to evolve before the policies come in place, but the policies will have a strong kind of reinforcing power, if you like. And I think that was the case in Sweden, that in the 60s, as you know, in many parts of the world, there was a pushback against very stereotypical gender roles. I think Sweden is perhaps a country that is quite, where a lot of people are ready to try out something new, and that this kind of hit the right place at the right time, and it grew from there. So the policies, of course, weren't introduced entirely into you know, a society that wasn't ready for it. So I think that's one thing to say. But I think otherwise, of course, I will leave to Rosa to say more specifically about South Africa, but of course you need time as well, and you need champions. So you need a minister to take parental leave to when he has a child. Take that leave, make it very public, encourage others to do the same. But Rosa, you will, I'm sure, also want to add something.
Thank you, Ami. Yes, just I think from our perspective on the ground, the experience that we've received here is, I think the norms are taking precedence over the policy, and like Ami said, people, or especially men, are open to this, and they want to experience this with their children. And how we've utilized this digitally, especially now, is to allow, I mean, not just us to preach policy and to talk about just our experience, but to give the platform to the local men and local parents to talk about what they want and what they're looking for. And we've seen the ball rolling with that quite well, and a lot better than you know, talking to a space and an area that doesn't really have as much experience and advance as a country like Sweden does. Yeah, I can share perhaps a couple of comments if you'd like me to, if we have time, from, for instance, our share screen is disabled, but I was going to share a little presentation or a comment from, for instance, one of our dad's competitions. And they gave the examples of what they believe gender equality to be and how they believe their family environment should be. And taking opportunity from this COVID time, we are able to reach, I mean, you know, at an embassy event, we were able to reach a couple of tens of people. And we're now able to reach more than 200,000 people at this stage using our digital events. And using local South Africans who can speak to local South Africans, the message is received a lot more understandably than us talking about it ourselves. So yeah, that's the experience I can give. I can perhaps read a little comment from one of the dads who have actually just posted on Instagram, who have won one of the competitions, saying that, yeah, it's a very cool hamper that they've received, and he's put a picture up of his kids. And yeah, basically he sent a video in as well, which may take a bit of time, but he actually just sent a video to me to post up on Instagram to talk about him encouraging dads. So that's without us as the embassy asking for that. So it clearly does help and make a difference to sort of put the ball in somebody else's court and give them the opportunity to talk about what they need.
Thank you so much, Ami and Rosa. Rosa, if I can ask you, please put the link in the chat box for all the attendees and the panelists to follow, to any of the material, to the Facebook streaming and to the video and the posts that you mentioned. It sounds really inspiring. I agree that timing is such an important moment and such an important thing to bear in mind. And it does seem like we are coming to a point where we might be approaching the right time for South Africa. I have one final question to Juliette, which was that from Vusi, from Sonke. And the question is, while working with women and men, what are the possible strategies you can share to hold advertising agencies accountable on controversial ads? So while we are promoting the really progressive messages we can through the toolkit, we might have advertising agencies reaching the same audience or bigger audiences with messages that are quite countering to us. So maybe some strategies or lessons in working in that space. Over to you, Juliette.
Okay, thank you so much. I think it's possible work with men in the fight against gender discrimination and promoting gender equality. The networks for the men in Zambia are very, what can I say? They are alive to working with women. Maybe it's because there's been a lot of campaign on women's movement working together with the men's movement. And also the fact that we don't have men's network moving on their own. We usually do our campaigns together. So it's possible to work together, the women's movement and the men's movement, and also to involve the advertising agencies. I don't know if I managed to answer the question correctly.
Sure. No, I think if I really support that idea of having the movements that are active and vocal in country actually influence the media. So, Mpho, as moderator, thank you so much. I am signing off as your rainy Cape Town correspondent and passing to the cold Joburg correspondent. Over to you, Mpho.
Thank you so much, Bessel, and thank you so much to all the speakers. So finally, the moment we've all been waiting for, I'm going to be sharing with you a brief background of launching our toolkit. So just to share a bit of information and background to why and where we are today. So through the CEDA global funding in our year one, which was last year up until April this year, our unit, which is the Child Rights and Positive Parenting Unit, was tasked with developing a MenCare in Africa media kit. I'm sure Vessel and Harriet will agree that we were somehow not so sure what will come out of this. It was so amazing. Like we really had so much different ideas of what could come out as a media kit. So we identified a consultant, which is Harriet, who was our first speaker, to lead on this. So some of the activities that we did as a build-up to have this final product that we'll be sharing in a few minutes, we conducted a workshop with MenEngage Africa partners last year, November, in Morocco during our MenCare global meeting in Rabat. So the targeted participation was 10 MenEngage Africa partners. But due to visa issues, we struggled really to get the 10 MenEngage Africa countries, and we ended up having Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, and Nigeria being represented at this workshop in Morocco. So fast forward to January this year, Harriet shared a first draft of the content outline, which was giving an idea of what this toolkit is going to look like. And what we found out is we had a chance as our unit at Sonke Gender Justice to review it. And we also managed to present it at the MenEngage Africa annual general meeting, which was held in February. So additional information for this media kit was taken out from a questionnaire that Harriet developed for MenEngage Africa partners who attended a capacity building training in Rwanda, in Kigali, in January this year. So endorsement of this media kit was approved by the MenEngage Africa in April during the AGM, which was held in Abuja in Nigeria. So I just thought to just share a brief content overview of what's contained inside the media kit itself. So there is an introduction, and I think what's nice about this launch today is that all the speakers that shared their experiences, everything is somehow entailed in the media kit. We saw that Harriet had a fair share of taking us through a communication for change session. It's something that is entailed in the media kit. Another theme is choosing your media formats. Another theme is the power of story. Another theme is building partnerships. And lastly, working with the media, which Juliet has been sharing with us. So when you look at the communication for change, what's contained in there, it's generally media advocacy. So there are three theories of change that we are taken through that you can try and identify to achieve an advocacy strategy. There are also talking points that you can also use that can guide you as to how to come up with a media advocacy strategy. And also there are case studies from country partners. For example, the one that Paul shared with us, it is entailed inside the media kit. And then the other theme, the next theme that's in the toolkit is choosing your media formats. So when you go through this section, you will see that there are various media formats that you can choose from. So there's sections on TV, talk shows, drama, exhibitions, excuse the spelling, radio, as well as social media. So this section takes you through some of the types of media formats that you can actually try and choose from when you are building up from the media advocacy strategy that you would have come up with in the first theme. And also there are talking points that you can go through. And then the next theme, the power of story. So here, what the toolkit aims to do is to help, or by giving tips on developing a good story. So here, that's where you're also going to be taken through some steps on how you can use the stories that you come across in your communities. For example, the primetime dads scenario, where as an NGO, you find that this is what the dads are doing in the community, and then you're able to develop a good story that you can actually come up with as a campaign or something like that. So all that information is entailed in this section. And then another section that's in the toolkit is around building partnerships. So when you look at this section, it's going to help the NGOs as to how do you really build partnerships with, for example, radio stations. There's a case study that is featured there that talks about how one can build a relationship with a radio station. It takes you through, drafting of MOUs, what can we do as an NGO to really build partnerships? Because like what Juliet mentioned earlier on, to say, as an NGO, you really can build partnerships with the media so that you are able to portray your wonderful work that you are doing within the community. And then the last theme that is there is working with the media. So here, that's where you are going to be given interviewing tips. So I know at times as NGOs, like I mentioned earlier on, that we get to be scared of journalists because we are afraid that they are possibly going to give us, they're hunting for those bad stories from our organization and all. But this is going to help you build on interviewing tips, like if a journalist approaches you, how can you pitch your story? How can you pitch your interview in a nice manner? So this section is what is really going to be talking about to assist you. And I guess the next steps for us, which is the aha moment for us that we've been waiting for all these months, is to share the link of the MenCare Media Kit. So Suleiman, I don't know whether you can fast forward to the link. Yay, there is the link. So the link is up and running. I'll ask one of my colleagues to also share the link on the chat box so that you can click and download it. It's a downloadable version, so it's free of charge. And we're just excited that it's up and running on our website, the Sonke Gender Justice website. So I think our other next step is to also try and get the MenEngage and MenCare country levels to adapt to their country levels. Because if you go through the kit itself, you'll see that there's quite a number of examples that are entailed in the media kit. So for example, if your country wants to adapt this media kit to speak to the experiences from your country, you'll be more than welcome to adapt it so that it's a tool that is really usable to everyone and speak to the communities that you're working on. So with that said, we are so excited that finally the toolkit is up and running. It's downloadable, and we are so excited that this has finally happened. So I'm just trying to check whether, okay, so Suleiman, you were just sharing the screen just to show the toolkit itself. So I can also see that we are on time. I think the launch just came at the very perfect time. We are now at 4:30, and we are now about to wrap the webinar. So I'd like to really thank all of you for staying with us, and we'd also like to thank again colleagues from Sonke Gender Justice, MenEngage Africa, MenCare Global, as well as our panelists who gave us such invaluable information for making this webinar a great success. And also to our funders, CITA Global and Oak Foundation, for the generous funding for this work. Lastly, this webinar is recorded and the link will be made available to everyone who attended. So on that note, I'd like to thank you and wish all of you a very happy weekend.
Thanks, Mpho. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.